This is Karen with NewClevelandRadio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. And I'm very lucky to have Darci Steiner back with us today. Um, I met her last week. We talked about a journey that you've been on for a long, long time, and
Mhm.
a journey that made you bedridden, made you dependent on individuals, and then you sort of found an inner will along with some medical help to recover. And during all that, just tell me, because I know you have a book. Were you thinking about the book while you were lying in bed and trying to recover?
Many people asked me during my first disability, they told me, "You should write a book." And over the years, I thought about it, but it was too deep. It hurt too much. I could not get to a place where I could do that. So, yeah, I did think about it, but I would cry the entire time. I'd never
Yeah.
get anything written. So so no, I was unable to, but I always wanted to write a book, but I just didn't think it would be about suffering. So
Absolutely. Well, none of us really want to write a book about suffering of any kind.
true,
Um,
true that.
yeah. But sometimes, that's how we learn. Um,
Mhm,
and we can also identify that we're not alone. And I'm sure that didn't help in the beginning uh, when you were injured to think, well, I'm not the only one who's going through something like this, because you just don't want to be in that position, and
mhm,
especially with two little children.
right.
Um, so tell me when you started thinking that, yes, I have this book inside of me and I can write it.
Okay. Well, in 2018, I was injured a second time, so I did not get to maintain my healing that I thought that I would have, which I did have for many years, and I'm so grateful for. However, at my daughter's wedding, a chair fell and hit my ankle and reinitiated this complex regional pain syndrome. So I wasn't able to do anything once again. And I just lamented. And when that chair fell and hit me, so it was leaned up against the wall, it was like this. And then it
Yep.
slid down and hit my ankle right as I was walking by. The exact same place in my ankle where the RSD, it used to be called RSD, complex regional pain syndrome, settled. The exact same place, Karen, and my daughter just got married. I should be rejoicing. And I was sitting crying at the end of my daughter's wedding,
Oh,
with ice on my ankle and crying all the way home, and had to stop at 7-Eleven for ice and, painkillers.
oh, geez.
And we thought, many thought that this, would be 6 weeks, like a sprained ankle.
Right.
I knew in my heart it would be longer. However, I tried to believe what everybody else was saying, "You'll be better in 6 weeks, sprained ankle gets better." It's been over 3 years, and I've had difficulty walking. The first 2 years were such horrendous pain. I couldn't sit still enough to watch a movie. It's not like I laid around and watched movies. I couldn't hold a book for long enough to read. I couldn't lay long enough to watch a movie. I had to keep shifting because everywhere in my body hurt. So yes, the chair hit my ankle, but the complex regional pain syndrome goes all throughout the body.
Right.
So my sides hurt because I was sitting so much. I hurt my hands because I was trying to transfer my body. So my hands developed the complex regional pain syndrome. I couldn't use my hands or my feet. And so there was a period of time for 2 months I sat by my bedroom window, and we have a trail behind our house where people
Okay.
walk by. And I was watching these people just be, and I was just so jealous. I was like, because I used to do that. I used to do that every day.
Yeah.
And I was thankful for it because of the first time. You know, my first disability developed in me this deep gratitude. And I would thank God every time I would be able to go for a walk or go for a drive and run an errand by myself. I just developed this deep gratitude. And now I'm sitting here watching these people and I'm just jealous and I'm mad and I'm hurt and I'm crying and I'm just a mess. And my husband has to feed me and bathe me and comb my hair and help me onto the commode. And here I am again, twice. Here I am in this disability twice. I just couldn't believe it. So yes, I'm lamenting, but there was one thing that I could do, and that was pray. So I did. And I didn't want to sometimes because I was angry, but it's all I could do. So,
Sure.
you know, as I did, my heart began to change because God, Jesus became my friend. And he was the only one in that place I felt that could understand where I was at. Um, Even Mark, who loves me, was my caregiver, still is my caregiver. It couldn't go some places with me that I needed a friend, and that was in this deep, deep darkness. But I felt God there. I felt him in the darkness. And so I talked to him. Um, and at that point, I started thinking, I need to start writing a book because some things started coming to my mind. And that was how God has really given me some gifts throughout all this. For instance, perseverance. I, how did I make it through to the next day?
Exactly.
It
Yeah.
wasn't through my will. Like, of course, I wanted to, but I can't make myself do that. I reached the end of myself long ago. So, how did I get through the next day? Well, it was a gift of perseverance from God. He helped me get through to the next day. So, that was a gift. And then Mark, the gift of love. Mark helped me get through to the next day, right? Compassion, you know, people's compassion, community surrounding us that would reach out and bring us meals. These were all gifts. And so I started thinking about all these gifts that God gave to help me, even though I was in a place still where I was lamenting, I was thinking about gifts.
Sure. You know, as I hear you say that for our listeners, you know, we all have our own spiritual guidance,
Yes.
whatever that is. And what I'm hearing is that's what you had to dig deep in and say, wait a second, you know, I'm here. I got out once before. Like, how did it all happen?
Mhm.
And, you know, I don't care if you're Muslim, you're Christian, you're Jewish, you're, you know, Hindu, it doesn't make any difference. Or if you say that you don't believe, you do believe in something because when you dig deep down inside, there is that guidance. And
Mhm.
so I'm so glad that you found that. But even finding it initially, you didn't recover.
I didn't. I mean, for 2 more years again, you know, I could do nothing and I couldn't write. I wanted to write,
Right?
but I couldn't use my hands. And eventually, as time went on, it just starts getting a little bit better. And I'm talking months, I'm talking years, you know. And this past year, I was able to sit long enough to begin typing the things on the computer. and actually started blogging because my father had passed. Um, and my dad, oh, Karen, my dad, I watched him the last couple of years of his life. He was an artist and he would draw pictures for everyone in the assisted living facilities.
Oh, wow.
And he gave this beautiful gift and brought joy to people and hope to people. And I wasn't doing that. I didn't have a gift I was giving people. So at his memorial service, I told everyone as I had my chance to speak about my father that I wanted to find that gift, whatever that was, to share with other people. And I was scared, but Brene Brown helped me with her Gifts of Imperfection book, to not be a perfectionist and to be brave enough to try to begin a blog. And so I started blogging and writing, I called it Radiantly Broken. So I talked about brokenness, and because that's where I was, that's what I was
Sure.
feeling. Everything felt broken, but the radiance was hope. There's always hope in whatever situation that we're in, whether it's the passage of time helps, hindsight, or just an aha moment. These different things come to us, and your talk about awareness is so true, because if we're not aware, we miss it.
Absolutely.
So we have to watch for these things when they come. And so I did start blogging, people responded, and some of my blogs are actually in my book. And, so I was like, maybe I do have the beginnings of a book here, because I did talk about certain gifts. And I began writing more outside of my blog. And I sat down, and when I would sit down to type, I would say, okay, God, what do you want me to write? What should we write about today? And so I just started writing. And two other things happened. I received this call. I don't know how they got my number, but from Self-Publishing School. And they talked to me about this program, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there's no way I can afford that,
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
But then there was this Bob Goff writing class online, and his was like $95 for 10 weeks or something. I'm like, okay, I'm in on the Bob Goff writing class. He made it affordable. So I took this writing class from Bob Goff, and he would give feedback on my writing. And it helped so much. And that was the launching pad. That was the launching pad to writing a book, because, I got some feedback, and
Sure.
there were other people in the group that were on the same path. And so little by little, my hands started improving. I wonder if the typing actually helped, to get me exercising. They still hurt, but I'm able to type.
So you had
This
the
book,
mind-body experience really from typing because you wanted to do it, okay? And as difficult as it was, you'd found that whatever time you associated with writing, you were gonna get through it.
and it helped me get through because it distracted me from the pain. And that's so much a part of it. Is I needed something to do while I sit. And I did try to play. I play the piano, and I did try to play the piano, but this reach, like, this hurts. And you have to do that a lot. When you're playing the
Right.
keyboard, you're all over the place. And I got so frustrated, I just banged the piano. I'm like, okay, it can't be the piano as much as I wanted it to be, and I still can't do that. But I'm hoping one day I can again. But typing, you don't have to reach that far.
Right. Yep.
So that became my distraction, and it became my therapy. You know, it's cathartic. People say that writing's cathartic, and it's true. I wrote poems. I have some poems in my book where I was in a dark place and I wanted to die. And I put that poem in my book because it's real. And I'm super vulnerable in the book. And but it's not it's a lighthearted book. I use humor. And
Okay.
so, yeah, it's a book about suffering, but it's more a book about overcoming and healing and hope and faith and trust and moving on, finding things to help us move on, move forward.
Well, the word humor, I love that because even in our darkest places, I've seen people laugh, try to find the brightness in the day.
Mhm.
Um, I've had chronic pain my whole life. And much like you, okay, I've never been bedridden to that point where I've needed that help. But there are times that my doctors have recommended it because I probably would heal faster. But I've always tried to find where that light was coming from.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
And sometimes it's difficult because, like you said, you just want to crawl up and die. The pain is so intense. Everybody else out on that walking path is having a great day. And of course, none
Yeah.
of them hurt or have any problems in life
Mhm.
because that's what we assume because they're doing what we want to do. But the reality of it is that we're all hurting
Right.
and
Yes.
we need to reach out to each other and, you know, not placate somebody for pain. And just to bring this into perspective, um, I've been having this, and it's not really chest pain, but it feels like chest pain.
Hmm.
Okay. And I've had costochondritis for years, but it's
Mm.
been dormant. And when you get stressed out or certain medications can make it bad. And in the last 2 weeks, I've been walking around like, oh my God, should I go to the ER? But I
Mm.
know it's not a heart attack, but
Oh,
the pain is intense. And
yeah.
so I finally, mentioned it to my husband and he looked at me and he said, you know what it is. And my wheels had to spin and I go,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, now what's causing it? And I sat here on Monday and I
Mm.
made a list of all the things in my life.
Wow.
And I sat here laughing, crying,
Yes.
and all of a sudden it hit me, you know, I am my worst enemy. I
Mm.
have taken on way too much in the past month.
Mm.
And as soon as I said that, I could just feel this wave, like you can take care of this. And
Wow.
somehow it sounds like that's what you came up with when you decided now's the time to write. I'm going to try this. I'm going to
Yeah.
let it just come out through me.
It's it's exactly how it happened. It just came out. I don't know how. I'm disabled, you know. Like it I have all these things against me, but it just came out and it came together. And my husband, my husband gives me flowers every week.
Oh, how
And
beautiful.
sometimes he just puts them beside even
Oh,
something little like this. He'll like pick it out of a field somewhere and bring me home a flower or a bouquet. And I had taken pictures of these roses I took pictures of, and I have a picture of my book.
yes.
And so I didn't want a rose for the cover of my book, even though it's called Beauty Beyond the Thorns, right?
Right.
People think of a rose. I did not want a rose on the cover. I wanted something else. But I was scrolling through my phone and I saw this beautiful picture of the inside of a rose. And I'm like, that's it. That's the cover. And so just all these things came together. I found the cover, I found a designer in Barcelona. Um, you know, it just, God gave, things came, it just came together. So it was meant to be. And, I wasn't planning on doing a study guide, but that came together because I thought, it would really be helpful if people had questions to ask themselves so that they could take the book deeper and really respond to it in a personal way, not just reading the stories in the book, but how does this apply to me? And how can this help me? So,
And, that was another reason that I wanted you to do this podcast with us, because your journey, even though for some it's unlike anything that they've ever been on or hopefully ever will be,
yeah.
there's there are bits and pieces where we can say, wow, I've been there, Darci.
Hmm.
Wow. Or I'm still there. How do
Hmm.
I get out of this? And I may not get out of it exactly the same way you did,
Right.
but by seeing what you've done, I get to say, okay, how can I do that? Maybe in a different way.
Hmm.
What's in it for me?
Hmm.
Um, and when we're hurting, that's all we
Hmm.
think about is ourselves. It's difficult to think about the people around you.
True. True. Yeah. In this book, it is for anybody who's gone through suffering. So, who does that include? It's not just for, it's not just for people who've gone through physical pain. It's for anybody who's gone through divorce, who's lost a loved one, who has financial troubles. I talk about, the death of my parents. I talk about job loss. I talk about hunger, you know. So it's for all kinds of sufferings. And it speaks hope into each of these. And that's the main message that I'm hearing back from my readers is it's a book of hope.
And it had to have been very devastating to be at your daughter's wedding. Everything is going well. You're feeling good. You're enjoying yourself, and now all of a sudden this chair hits you and there you are in tears. And I can't imagine your daughter and other family members, their reaction. It's like, wow, of all days, of all places.
Yeah. I know it was such a beautiful wedding, and I'm so grateful it happened at the end. That's all I can say about it happening on that day is the timing of it was way better than if it had happened at the beginning.
I I agree
I,
with you.
I would have had to have left,
Yeah.
So, there are gifts in that too. But yeah, it was not the best day for it to happen, but it's not a good day to get disabled twice any day. So
Absolutely. But you talk about being disabled, and yet we talked a little bit last time about the fact that you spend a day a week with your grandchild.
yes.
So you still have abilities. And that's what I want people to understand. There are disabilities that we can have, things that
Mhm.
are difficult for us to do, or we can't do that we need help with. But there are always things we can do. And one of the things I was thinking about when you said you decided that you wanted to write the book, but it was painful, there's voice recognition software.
Mhm.
So, you could have dictated the book if you wanted to.
I
Um,
did some. I did a little bit.
I love it. Yep.
Yeah.
And that's what that's what about being aware is all about. What is it we can do so we can focus on that?
Mhm.
Because I know on my bad days, it's like, what can I do? And before
Mhm.
we came on air today, I mentioned that, I have a pretty full day. and I haven't been feeling all that great, but
Mhm.
I know as soon as I connect with the person I'm going to podcast with, that's what I'm doing.
Mhm.
Everything else goes away.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not sure how, and maybe I don't want to know how. And I
Mhm.
sometimes think that maybe that's it, that there is somebody greater than us who is
Mhm.
helping us through that
Mhm.
time.
Yeah, that perseverance part, like, who's helping you be able to persevere?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and with my granddaughter, it's interesting that you mentioned her because a couple days ago, I so my daughter was up for an internship, which we found out yesterday she got, which
Oh,
is
very
really
good.
good. So that's an opportunity for me to go watch my granddaughter 2 days a week,
Ooh, okay.
which I'm excited about, but I can't watch her by myself.
Right.
So I lost it. I just started bawling. I spent the evening in the bedroom laying on the recliner just feeling sorry for myself, like, here we go again. I went through this with my kids, that I couldn't be there for my kids, and now I have to go through it again with my grandkids? Really? And I just I just kept thinking through this, and there's a chapter in my book about gratitude, the gift of gratitude, and the 10 lepers. There's a story of 10 lepers in the Bible who are healed by Jesus, and only one goes back to thank him. And
Mm,
so my chapter is about the one who went back to thank him. And I started thinking about that chapter and I started thinking about gratitude. And I came up with a quote and I shared it on Instagram yesterday. I can't remember it right now, but it had something to do with gratitude. And um, I realized a lot of people want a grandchild, and I have one. That's awesome. And that should be enough. And yeah, I can't watch her by myself because I can't walk. However, this little girl, when I go over, so how we do it, my husband goes with me, he works. I sit on this exercise mat. So I have a padded sitting, I sit on the floor, and all of her toys are around, and I'm sitting here. And I thought once she would learn how to crawl, which she does, she'd just crawl away and that would be the end of that,
sure.
right?
Right.
She would just want to be crawling around. However, she does, she stays by me. She wants to play. And so she is there. And I was afraid of that. So I want to be able to take her to the zoo. I want to be able to take her to the park. I can't do that. However, the thing that I thought I couldn't do before that I lamented over happened. Like, it's okay. So I'm worrying about the future, you know,
And we all do.
and it might not come true. My worst fears might not come true with that. But right now, I just need to focus on I have a granddaughter. Otherwise, I am not going to enjoy her because I'm going to be, oh, I know what my quote was, enjoy, like, just enjoy so you don't destroy the moment.
Very
So
profound. Yes.
if we don't enjoy what we have, we destroy our perception of it. So what I can do is I can enjoy her and I can be with her and I have her. I'm a grandma and I don't want to destroy that by thinking of the things I can't do with her.
Now, if we all could adopt that into our lives, whether it's regarding physical, emotional, whatever type of pain, um, that, you know, I was once like that. Okay. I'd be having a good time about something, but worrying about what's going to happen next. And um, my oldest brother, one day said to me, "Why are you worrying? You have
Mm,
no control. You only
Mhm.
have control over what's happening right now. So what do you like about right now? And my
Mm.
first reaction was nothing, because I wanted to go up into the future and he was
Mhm.
making me stay here.
Mhm.
But the more we talked about it, it was like, you're right. Why am I worrying about it? I'm here right now.
Mhm.
Okay. And uh, and a lot of that had to do with, you know, my parents lived in Michigan. I had a brother living in New York, one in California. I was in Ohio. And when we'd get together, it was so great. But I was worrying about, are we going to do this again? Am I going to,
Mm.
when am I going to see you again? Even
Oh.
before I said hello to them. And
Oh my
so,
gosh, yeah.
yeah, so it was ruining and my mother was like that too. Because as we'd be driving into Michigan, she'd be calling and she'd say, so when are you coming again? I haven't even arrived. So that's
Oh,
where I took it from. And
yeah.
and with my brother saying it to me, it was like, you are so right. I'm
Yeah.
missing out on the moments around me.
Right.
So I think, like you said, you have this position around your granddaughter. Okay. You were afraid she would go off in other directions. Sometimes we sense things and we
Mhm.
just adapt. And she may be sensing, hey, grandma's just sitting there. Okay. If I go over there, I'm not going to be able to play with her. So I
Mhm.
better stay here. Um, and so we have to adapt. And
Mhm.
once, if she starts moving away from you, you'll figure out something else that you can do
Mhm.
that will make up for it. And that's where I see your resilience. You're
Mhm.
not stopping and saying, oh, now she's walking and she's going into the other room to play with her toys. She doesn't want grandma. No,
Mhm.
we'll figure out another way for grandma and baby to be together.
Yeah. Thank you. That makes me feel good. She is adapting, and I think you're right. Even as a little 9.5-month-old, she's figuring it out that I can't go to the other room, and she's choosing to stay there, and, my fear hasn't come true. So, we'll figure out a way, and I will
Absolutely.
get to go to the zoo with her. I might have to ride in the little, scooter with her or whatever, but, you know, it's a dream that I wanna do with her, and somebody will help that dream come true. Somebody will help both of us.
Absolutely. And it's great that your daughter has this opportunity as well.
Mhm,
Um, and it's growing. It's a growing lesson for all of you. Um, and I think so many of us get stuck in wanting things to be the same all the time, because if it's the
mm,
same, nothing's changing.
mhm,
Um, And so if, you can stay in this one position and play with your granddaughter until she's 16 years old, hey, wouldn't that be wonderful? I wouldn't have to think and I wouldn't have to worry and I wouldn't have to make changes. But life does change. And so again, I'm reinforcing it to myself. You know, things happen at the drop of a hat.
mhm.
And, it's time for us to appreciate the good that's around us. And,
Absolutely.
we'll find a way to get through the rest. But
Mhm,
tell me a little bit more about the book, because before we went on, you asked, could you talk about it? Because it's, very faith oriented.
mhm,
And my comment was absolutely, it's your book, it's your journey. Um, but from what I understand, because I have a friend who has actually purchased the book even before she saw this podcast, because
You
she had
purchased
heard,
my book?
yes, she heard about the
Oh.
book. So she was telling me, she said, and she claims that she doesn't believe in anything. Okay. But your book inspired her to say, maybe there's something out there.
Mm.
So, how did you make those connections in your stories?
The book started out completely different than how it what it morphed into. I was just going to write about the 33 healings in the Bible. Actually, I think there's 34 occurrences of healings in the Bible. And I don't mean this bad, God, but it was a little boring, uh, just how I wrote the book. So, but I also didn't want to put myself in the book. I felt like, you know, I I don't want to talk about myself because it just feels a little egotistical, and I didn't want to come across in a bad way. But again, through prayer, I was like, I have to put in the first chapter about my story, or people aren't going to understand this whole book.
Sure.
So I wrote kind of my first disability, and then, well, take two, here we go again. And so that's my first chapter. And I bookended it with a metaphor. And the metaphor is climbing Long's Peak. So I talk about going on this journey with Jesus, climbing up Long's Peak, because Long's Peak is my favorite peak. I'm in Colorado. I get to look out at the mountains. I see Long's Peak, and it also represents long suffering to me because it is a very difficult peak to climb. And the top of it is called the Diamond. And so, there's nothing there. People have very technical climbs right there. So
Sure.
it's difficult. So this is my metaphor that, okay, so I get to a certain point on the mountain and God gifts me something. And that's one of my chapters. He gifts me compassion. He teaches me that you are learning about compassion in a deeper way than I have a lot of other people learning about compassion because of what you're going through. And my children learned compassion very deeply because they saw their mother be in a wheelchair.
Right.
So my kids are very sensitive. They're going into fields where they are taking care of other people, child life specialists, and studying how children develop the concept of pain. That's what my kids are doing.
Interesting.
So they have learned compassion because of this. That is a gift. Okay, so that's one part of the mountain. As I go up the mountain, Jesus gifts me another gift, which is another chapter, and he carries me along. And the higher I get, I look back in hindsight, right? In hindsight, we see all the things that God has done for us, and it helps us keep climbing. Because if we just look behind us and we see, man, how did I get through that? I got through that difficult day I didn't think I was going to get through, but I did. So hindsight gives us a lot. The end of my book is the end of the metaphor, where getting to the top of Long's Peak is actually going to heaven. And God is there, and that's kind of the end. And what I say at the very end is, maybe God will take me on a run. Maybe now we will go for a run, and maybe he'll go for a run with me, because I have the hope of heaven, and I have hope of walking on earth, but I for sure have hope of walking in heaven. And so I hold on to that hope. That is my hope. Jesus is my hope. And my title is called Beauty Beyond the Thorns. And Jesus is the beauty beyond the thorns. He's the one that brings relief to suffering. And he's the one that helps us through hard days. So that's a little bit about that.
And as you were talking, I'm seeing myself going up this mountain and
Yeah.
stopping and looking down, and I got to this point.
Mhm.
Wow.
Mhm.
And if I got to this point as I'm looking up, can I go a little bit further?
Right.
And sometimes we don't realize that we are climbing the peak. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
There have been days that I'll say to myself, boy, what kind of life am I living? I'm not doing anything. Um, and you make a list of all your faults and all the things that have gone wrong and, trying to blame it on other people. And then all of a sudden you say, wait a second, that's not true. Look where
Mhm,
I am.
mhm,
How did I get here? And if I
mhm,
can stop, like I did the other day, and say, okay, how did I get here? What can I do differently?
mhm,
My successes aren't going to be yours, and yours aren't going to be mine.
mhm.
We have to stop trying to be like everyone else.
Right. Mhm.
And I know that's got to be difficult when you look out at the path and, see people walking because that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
But you do something else to compensate for that. So you mentioned that you're not walking. You're not walking with assistance. You're not walking at all. You're back in a wheelchair. What is the situation?
I'm walking a few steps a day. I can walk from our front door out to the car, which is progress. I can walk from this office to the bathroom. Recently, I've been able to walk into the kitchen and get a simple, quick lunch. That's it. And that's with a lot of pain. And I tell people it feels like I have a corkscrew, that's going up into my feet as I walk. And it's so painful. And I went to a new doctor, a new neurologist who increased one of my medications over the past couple weeks, which has helped me to be able to walk a little bit more. So it's covering the pain. I still have the pain. I don't know if it's going to go away. I don't know how much I'll walk, if I can walk more in the future. I don't know if I'll walk less. I don't know from day to day. That's why I just have to live for the day. It keeps me in the moment and
Absolutely.
it's okay. And when people ask me how I'm doing, I don't answer physically because otherwise they're going to get a negative answer. Well, you're asking somebody who hasn't been able to walk for 3 years. Like, I'm not going to say, well, I'm still not walking. I'm not sure
Yep.
how to answer that question, but I'm not depressed. I have hope. I have other books I'm writing. I'm writing one for insomniacs because I
I
have.
need that one.
You do?
Oh, I
Okay.
do. I do.
Yeah, because I'm awake a lot at night in pain. A lot of people suffer with insomnia, and I have some remedies for that. I'm a nutritionist, so there'll be a nutrition part. I'm a disabled nutritionist. That's what I thought I should call myself.
I love that.
Just go to the disabled nutritionist, but I still know nutrition. Um, so I'm going to put nutrition stuff in there. I'm going to put music. And I have someone who sent me an original song that I love that I'm going to put in there. And I can't give away everything that I'm putting in there, but I have that book next. And then I have a book on the Beatitudes, because in the Beatitudes, Jesus talks about this upside down way of life, this backwards way of life. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Okay, so what does that mean? What does that mean? It's upside down. And so I want to delve into that. And that was actually going to be my first book, but that's my baby.
That's your
So I
baby.
want a little bit more practice at writing and publishing before I put my baby out there.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I plan to continue writing.
Well, and as you said, writing is a way for us to heal.
Mhm.
Um, I started blogging about 10 years ago. And I was blogging about my son. So my youngest son is on the autism spectrum.
Okay.
To know him for the most part, you'd have no idea. And that was just as difficult for all of us
Mm,
as somebody who had it more severely than him. Because
sure.
people looked at him and said, "Oh, he's disabled." And it's like, no, he's not disabled. And, you know, and it was a constant fight. And I decided I didn't want to fight anymore. So I started blogging about it. And as I
Mm,
blogged, I was less angry with people who didn't understand. And I would say, if you don't understand, please read this. And if you still don't understand it, you know, I'll lead you to other places where maybe you can read something else. But it helped all of us here in the family. Um, it also gave me a different perspective on how to respond to him, because
mm,
for so many years I was listening to all the doctors and all the therapists and doing, the cookie cutter, and it wasn't working. And finally, one day I realized when he asks me a question, he doesn't always want an answer. He's just asking a question to hear himself speak. And so I
oh,
started figuring those things out.
wow.
It's where I could put it into my blog and say, yes, he asked me this question and was so difficult not to respond. But I could
Mm,
tell the way he asked it and then walked away. He didn't want my answer. He didn't want
mm,
to know, should he ask this girl out or should he go to this party? He was just, you know, it was garbage in, garbage out is the way that we
mhm,
now talk about it. And so writing was wonderful for me.
mm,
And I found the more I wrote, the better I got at it. And then I
mhm.
started writing blogs for a magazine, which was like, seriously, like
Oh,
whoever would have
cool.
thought about that. So when
Yeah.
I look at your journey early on, before you had your girls, you went on an adventure with your husband. Okay. You,
Yes.
you know, you, you said, we're going to do this while we're young and wild. Uh, then you settled in to have a family. And then all of a sudden, you're on this other journey.
Mhm,
So I want to encourage people to keep listening to you, read your books, talk to people around you who are going through something. Try to
mhm.
understand. Okay, they may not be able to explain it initially, like you said in the last podcast. You couldn't really tell somebody, what you were feeling other than, I'm feeling pain.
Yeah,
Okay, and I don't want to
exactly.
be in this bed. Okay, but I think if people could have heard that and said, yeah, I wouldn't want to be in pain like she is. I
Mhm,
wouldn't want to be in bed. So,
mhm,
what can I do or say differently
mhm.
to help?
Yeah, I think conversation is so important, and I hear you say over you're a great promoter of that, and you exemplify it by doing this podcast. There's so much texting and there's so much emailing, yet there are so many things that get missed, and I encourage conversation too, and writing. Think if you can journal your feelings, and then you have conversation material, because and get with someone you can have a deep conversation about, because it helps to heal. And if you feel alone, maybe talking to somebody about what you wrote might be what you need,
Absolutely.
besides just writing it, because we need to be compassionate towards other people's stories, no matter what they're going through, and just listen. People just need to be listened to. I don't need a response back. Sometimes, a lot of times, I just need to talk. I just need to somebody please just listen to this. I'm grieving that my granddaughter's going to grow up and I can't go to the zoo. Please just listen to me and don't give me all the answers. We need to do that more. We need to just sit and listen, maybe hold the hand of someone who's hurting, and neither one say anything. Maybe we just need to sit in silence with someone you know,
Well,
it's not going to get better.
and when they listen, because one of the things that I was hearing um, about the zoo, okay, you have friends, you have family, um, and I'm not excluding your husband, but he does so much. But I'm just, there's probably somebody out there who's going to hear this and, they could call you up and say, hey, Darci, what if I take you and your granddaughter to the zoo? And I know they have these carts that you can rent, okay? And she can sit on your lap and, I'm going to push you through the zoo and we're just going to have a grand old time. That's what friends and family, they just need to hear it
Mhm,
without you asking, you
mhm.
know, or, hey, I want to take her to her first movie. Well, there's always somebody who can help you do that. And maybe by that time, you'll be able to do it on your own. But until then, you know, let's be creative. Um,
Thank you.
you know, because I wish I was in Colorado right now because
Oh, Karen,
I would love to go to the zoo.
let's go to
I
the
need an
zoo
excuse.
and the movies.
But sometimes I think as friends and family, we we don't get creative.
Mm,
Okay. And I think I may have shared this with you that when my mother was ill and dying, she kept
mhm.
saying she wanted to go out, she wanted to go for a ride. And I don't know why I kept saying it, but I kept saying, do you want to go to the zoo? And she kept saying, no, I don't want to go to the zoo. And I'd say, oh, but I'd take you there. I didn't know how I was going to create that,
Yeah.
idea. But she'd say, no, I just want to go for a ride. And so we'd move her hospital bed up and down. And I would say,
Mm,
oh, do you see those trees? And I would just describe them for her. I never thought I could have done that, but I
mm,
heard what she wanted. And
that's beautiful.
this is all I could give her. And I was frightened the first time I did it because, like I said, she didn't know she was blind. And I thought she was going to say, wait a second, I'm not in a car. There are no trees. But she went along with it. And the
Mm,
fact that she did, it was a joyous day for me. And her caregiver was sitting there with this big, huge smile on her face
aw,
because to my mother, we were out for a ride.
mhm,
So be creative, be
mhm,
caring.
mhm.
Um, and if anybody who knows Darci is out there, it's a beautiful day to go to the zoo.
I guess I really want to go to the zoo, don't
I
I?
guess. And I hope your granddaughter loves it as much as you do.
You're going to be the first person I write when I say I'm at the zoo.
I can't wait. I cannot wait. Well, what I would like to do as a follow up in the next couple weeks, if possible, if your husband is willing, I'd love to have him on. I'd
He's
love,
willing.
I'd love to know. I mean, what a love. Um, Being such a great caregiver. I know another couple that the husband, almost from the first day they got together, became his wife's caregiver.
Mhm,
And they've been together 30 plus years. And, you know, this tells me that there is love in the world. And for so many people who say, oh, things aren't going right and walk away, I want them to hear how we can stay together. And I've got one of those partners too. So I totally get it. But I will email you. We'll get that scheduled. And you are my bright star. And
mm,
I'm so glad I've met you. And
me
hold up your
too.
book one more time.
Oh, sure. Oh,
Beauty Beyond the Thorns and the study guide, Beauty Beyond the Thorns. So I'm going to recommend that everybody go out and get it. Um, and let's start a conversation. And if you get the book and you have questions for Darci, we'll have you on as a guest and we'll all talk about it. I think that would be great.
I would love that. Karen, you just, the fact that you want to talk to Mark tells me you do have a heart for people who are hurting. And the fact that you recognize that and want to have him, it's bringing tears to my eyes. Like, it's just, it's so thoughtful. And he is trying to speak into other people who are going through what he has because it's affected him. It's
It
changed his life.
and it has to be difficult in a different way for him.
Mhm.
And that's what I had seen with my husband. I mean,
Yeah.
I've have not become an invalid. I fight through it all, but my husband stands there and goes, "Could you please sit down? Can I please bring in dinner? Can I take you out to dinner?" And I get stubborn and it's like, "No, I want to do." But
Yeah.
I do, and I have to tell him over and over again, I do appreciate his care.
Mhm.
Uh, but I'm just I'm a stubborn person. And I'm sure if you could get up on your feet right now, you would be just as stubborn. So,
Oh, I am.
yeah,
I'm feisty.
I can tell. And and Mark is going to share all that with us too. So I can't wait.
Oh no.
So again, thank you so much, Darci. We'll have your book in the show notes, and all your information. And we will talk soon. Okay.
Beautiful conversation. Thank you,
Thank you.
Karen.
Have a great day.
You
Bye-bye
too.
now.
Bye.